Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Christopher, you've been part of a pretty wild week in Texas Tech basketball. Not so wild early in the week, but one of the craziest games we'll ever experience as Texas Tech fans. Obviously, that's going to be at the forefront of almost everybody's minds. We've got questions for that. We've got a lot of basketball questions. But heck, Texas Tech has won 6 games in a row, and I don't know if you could have faced tougher odds than you did on Saturday to go in, not just to a place where they won 33 games in a row and win that game, but lose your best scorer and rebounder and head coach minutes into the game and find a way to win. I mean, what a unbelievable game, and you got to see it courtside.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get caught up in the moment.
Maybe.
But speaking about this game, I think you can easily put it down as one of the most impressive regular season wins in your entire program's history. Certainly in the Big 12 era, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Regardless of what version of the Big 12 it was. And then, years from now, it's like, okay, yeah, 22 beats 6, or the 22nd team beats the 6th team and all that. Well, it's like, well, it's not that big. Well, but when you have to have all the context there.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what makes it. Because, I mean, Houston was completely healthy. Now, they didn't finish healthy. They had won, what was it, Woodman? Was it 32 straight?
33.
33. Okay, I was close.
Yep.
And the longest streak in the country.
Home. Home. Yeah, they had one.
Home winning streak, yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's wild what the mind and togetherness can do when all singularly focused. And I thought when the JT Toppin and Grant McCasland thing happened, I thought, you're cooked. And then you've already adding into that like, Kevin Overton's not even going to play in this game.
Sure.
And but I mean, don't tell those kids that. Don't tell Jeff Lindor that. Don't tell the culture that Grant McCasland. And he keeps talking about how high character, because there's some of these kids that are like robots, man. I mean, Kurt Walton, if he plays 5 minutes or 25 minutes, he's going to give you all he's got, and some nights is better than others. But I mean, he was just fearless. EY, I mean, all the little the pieces that took you to get from beginning to end. Because D5 fouls out, Federico fouls out. I mean, you're just left with. I mean,
at one point you're down 4 players before that game is
of an 8-man rotation.
Yes. 4.
Yeah, and I look up and toward the very end, and I see Leon Horner stand up off the bench, and he runs up the tunnel. And I thought, man, is he going to use the restroom? Whatever. And I think it's because they had it. So on the flight home, it's like I heard Breyer telling AC, and they were just saying like, how about Leon? But they were like, "Hey, dude, go get ready." And so he's like right now, like we're about to like for this game, like,
yeah,
yes, like right now. So he was going to go run up the tunnel and kind of jog around. But the environment was intense. It was heated. It was Big 12 basketball. It was all the stuff. But I mean, you're 5-0 on the road, man.
That's
I mean,
that's unreal in this league.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be kidding me.
Sitting one game back of first place. Now, Level, I know you've gotten the question a couple of times in recent weeks. Do you now buy Texas Tech? And I think you said it going into this. If Tech was to go in and win a really tough game in Houston, then you would buy them as a Big 12 title contender. Now you're a game back halfway through the Big 12 season.
Yeah, and that okay. I was about to say I've always been buying. I think that
Right.
in the context of like a league title contender,
Right.
yeah, I think so. I
You
think
have to at
so.
this
And
point.
shame on me for not, feeling like I just thought the UCF loss, I thought, 1 point loss versus Iowa State, but then it's kind of started to even out. And again, you have another tough week ahead. Okay,
Yeah,
so
sure.
and adversity was going to happen to you at some point, but this one was the holy grail of
Yeah.
wins.
I mean,
This win, literally, this win, I've seen it. Put it this way, um, that this one now puts you. There's now not any way you won't be in the NCAA tournament
yeah, I've seen it too.
because of this one.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, you still got half a conference season, but that's how elusive a victory like this is and has been for teams. And now you hope that Houston holds serve at home the rest of the way because you will have gotten
Hmm.
like you put this one up on a pedestal of sorts. And I still am just trying to process how you got it done.
So, I mean, the craziness of it all, the ejection that was maybe the worst call that some of us have ever seen. Worst decision by three officials to choose to eject a guy. And that Coach McCasland talked about how hard JT Toppin worked and how much excited he was for this game. That's the part that gets a little bit lost in all of this, in all the craziness is you just took a guy's hard work and ability to go contribute for his team away. And Coach McCaslin talked about how Toppin's nearly in tears in the locker room because he doesn't know what he did wrong. And that's where I, I just can't wrap my head around how you come to that sort of decision. How three guys, and that's why they have three that are supposed to, this isn't a single guy making this decision. It's supposed to be a method with checks and balances where three guys can make the right choice. But I just can't fathom how you can come to that decision off of a play like that. And Level, I mean, Texas Tech is now the poster child for how to overcome adversity on the road because I don't know that anybody's been in that adverse of a situation where you lose someone unfairly like that at the beginning of the game, arguably the most important someone to your team, and especially a game like this, and you go into what has been the toughest road environment in the Big 12 the last few seasons and get a win. So, but take us back to that play, your view of it, your thoughts of it. Well, a lot of people heard your thoughts on the radio, and you were not
Yeah,
reserved with them either.
yeah, I have, there's a list of issues, and it was obviously emotional, and I maybe I didn't handle myself professionally or well, but I don't apologize for anything that I said because I meant every word, but
Sure.
maybe I should have just kept it to myself. But at the time, I
No.
mean, obviously Kirby Hocutt agrees with me, and
Hmm.
or I agree with Kirby Hocutt, and I agree with Grant McCasland.
Yeah.
My issue was this, as we because there's different layers to it. My issue was it's they collectively came together, looked at it again, and then they were refereeing intent. They were officiating intent is what they were basically doing and saying, okay, he meant to do this. Like the physics were, and you heard Grant break this down after the game. The physics were. Um, that he's throwing with his right hand, and so his opposite leg comes out. It's just how it works. He's like, we should call Pat Mahomes and ask him how to
Hmm.
and like just knowing JT just a little bit and just seeing how he rolls, that's just not if you think Grant is coaching thing, I mean, that's just not this team. It's not this kid. That's not this coach. I'm offended by the suggestion that you would referee intent there and suggest that that was intentional, which is clearly what you are saying. And
Is
so
it?
so
Because
that
I can't even like
well,
a
it's
common
it's like it's
sense
in
says that that's not intent. Common
yeah,
sense.
it's in the rules about a groin area and all this stuff.
It's
Okay, if you think pop him once, okay, but then there's the Grant McCasland deal, and this is what really like I guess sent me into a different headspace. Is that a veteran crew or a veteran lead official or whatever, however we want to phrase that, had to understand that when you make this call, the head coach is going to lose his mind,
yeah.
and to pop him twice and not either pop him once or not like say, hey, you're not going to like this, but just get it out right now. I mean, there's just, and again, to your point, Woodman, there's too much money, there's too much
Yeah.
energy, there's too much time and everything put into these games, and the conference is trying to put this sport up on a pedestal and
Sure.
trying to showcase it, and then you're in a top 25 matchup on national television and you pull the plug on a coach and a best player
Hmm.
or one of the team's best players like 3 minutes into a game. I just find that inexcusable.
Yeah.
Like one plus one does not equal two here. Like that, you're making no sense. And so and I don't want this. This is not about me or what I said. But those were the reasons why. And and then to even further that, what really also bothered me is that after this happens, your team is fighting and all that, and then Juwan Roberts hits a shot and he says something to Tech bench, which this happens often in league
Hmm.
play. I've witnessed this.
Yeah.
There's like the ice in the veins, there's the sleep,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's the hey, you better tell him to guard me. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I've seen and witnessed and everything. And then for you to tee that up to somehow like even it up or like try to put the toothpaste back in the tube. No, man, too late. And that's what I
Worst
said.
makeup call ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too late for you to try to make good.
Yeah.
But I came away as impressed with this. And Haxton and I were saying it like this ragtag group of misfits is the way that the game kind of finished because you've got
Sure.
lineups out there you haven't played the whole year with.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and it's just I couldn't have been, I don't know, more proud or
Agreed.
impressed or stunned, but it is one of the most impressive regular season wins in your program's history. And I don't feel like I'm overstating that at all.
No, I know we live in the moment and speak in
Uh,
hyperbole too much at times, especially in this business, but I don't disagree with you. I think this is, I mean, my fandom runs 20 something years deep for Tech basketball, but I can't remember a win that in the regular season that was as impressive circumstances, um, obviously surrounding, but I think just, wrapping up the whole ref thing, that it is irresponsible for them to do what they did in that game. Completely irresponsible. And it is a terrible look for your league. There has to be repercussions. Has to
and
be.
they had talked to I was made aware that they had talked to the commissioner before halftime got there.
Oh wow.
So, oh yeah,
Well, I mean,
and
I guess Kirby
there were
Hocutt
there
in
were
his
regents and heavy hitters on the scene
yeah,
as part of the Texas Tech contingent. Kirby was not there,
yeah,
but there were regents and some of your heaviest hitters there witnessing it play out like within feet of them. Some of
yeah,
those guys were actually closer than I was. I'm across the court and I've got a big TV monitor in front of
sure.
me, and I've got the TV folks like one seat over them. I mean, I could hear King McClure on the TV call, like going, "I don't agree with that," like I mean, and so
Yeah,
the producer is right next to me, the stage manager, and
right.
he's the guy he's writing notes and handing it to him, and he was like, he wrote, "What was that?" Question mark. Worst call I've ever seen. And I'm like, yeah, I agree.
For
I mean,
real. Yeah.
yes.
So I mean, what I guess and that's a couple of questions we've got as we start to leak into these questions level. Do we see any um do we see any punishment for the officials, and what would that look like?
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. That's above my pay grade. Like my speculation would be maybe because I would just say one of these three officials. This was his second Big 12 game to ever call, I believe, is right.
Oh
And
man.
and to drop him in the deep end of the pool in Houston, Texas,
Yeah.
with a top 25 matchup, that's just and I understand you can't just now with an expanded league, there's only so many veteran officials because some of the guys in this league are really good.
Sure.
It's funny, one of the guys that's now a coordinator of officials, John Higgins.
Hmm.
I think he's missed, but he's kind of phased out and retired. I think he's missed because no one could control a game and
Yeah.
not deal with any nonsense. And you may not like the frosted tips and all these kinds of things, but he called a good game. I like Ray Natilli. I think there's some other good ones um, in the league, but this one was just when I saw it on paper, I was like, "Whoa, okay, this is."
Yeah,
Because
why would they do that in such a big game? Because usually these marquee matchups, you see the bigger officials, right?
yeah, but I don't know how it's. I think there's a no rhyme or reason. Well, there probably is, but I just don't know about it, like how
Sure.
they're assigned and location and where you're going to be calling games the next day, the whole deal. Like it's not like there's an actual crew. These guys are all like doing different games and all this stuff, and they're not with the same group of guys every night in and night out, right? You're just kind of going all over the place. And how this was assigned, I don't know. And I hate spending so much time about this, but this was a big storyline. So my
Huge.
guess is to sum that question up is because that's the other problem is there's no transparency. Like, hey, tell us why you kicked the kid out.
Right.
Like tell us why you didn't want to let Grant have his say and you weren't understanding and you ejecting his player on the road in a top 25 matchup 3 minutes into the game. I want to hear your explanation. And so that part bothers me because we don't hear any of that. And so I guess maybe if they deal with it, maybe it's behind the scenes, but maybe none of these guys are on the call for you anymore the rest of the year. I don't know.
I
I
mean,
would hope they're yeah, but I mean they did call a travel at the very end, and you won the game because of a call.
yeah, glad they didn't swallow the whistle there. Good
Yeah,
point.
I mean yeah.
Uh,
So, but yeah, what it was it Joey McGuire said, "Ball don't lie."
I think so.
I think that's what he
Yeah.
tweeted out. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's somebody maybe right behind me, a Tech fan right behind me that had the few three or four, and
Yeah.
he was giving them the Raider power, giving them the business there at the Fertitta Center. He says to me like I feel this tap on the shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, what's up? Because I'm still in the air, and he's like, that loss for Houston had to be a real kick in the nuts. Like it took me a second, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man, like
Uh,
mixing the water, man, and guns up. Yeah. So
Speaking of that, before there's a couple more officiating questions, and we'll move on to the actual, game and a couple other things. But speaking of that, no joke, my wife when we watch these games, just a little, I'm watching on TV, and my wife is too antsy. She's like, I can't sit down and watch this. So she's getting stuff done around the house while the game's on, and then she'll stop for a second. And she's like, I can't tell who's doing well in this game because it's cheers so much on both sides. And speak to the crowd level because it did seem like there was a really good contingent of Red Raider fans because every time Tech does something well, hits a big three, there was a pretty darn loud roar. Was it just a few Tech fans that were making it loud, or was it a large number of Red Raiders there?
so the thing about University of Houston is their team is legit. Their coach is legit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. Yeah,
Their environment in football and basketball, and this is why I think gave a lot of people pause for adding them to a league like the Big 12. It's very I don't know if the right it's JV compared to a lot of these other environments.
sure.
It was intense in there, and it's because that arena is so small. The Fertitta Center. I think it holds like 7,100 or so, and so you hold twice as much, but they're right on top of you, and it's just a giant commuter school. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what University of Houston is. Their campus is just off of downtown. The facilities are smallish and all that. You just
Mm.
kind of went for location when you're adding them, and they've certainly had success in the sports. I'm just talking about the college feel, the college environment, all that stuff. And I had seen that Texas Tech was trying to take it over and all that stuff, and I think other schools make it really hard to do that, like you were doing it 3, 4, 5 years ago. But there was a legit. I mean, I don't know if it was 1,000 or 1,500. I mean, I don't know, but there was a big swath of the corner of the arena, kind of behind the Tech bench, and I had Tech fans. I mean, I'm across the court. I had Tech fans to my left. I had uh, I had Regent Cody Campbell and his son sitting 3 seats over from me in the front row, and like the front row of the seats. I had Tech fans behind me because I kept hearing level, this and that. And I'm like, where is this all coming from? But it's so small, you can hear everything, and that's
Yeah.
what makes it tough to play. But I would say that playing there, it's not it's their team that makes it hard. It's the
Right.
coach that makes it hard. It's not the environment that overwhelms you and all those things. And that's what I was like. Were the officials like, did they bow down to like to Kelvin Sampson and feel like, okay, we gotta,
Yeah.
that part I just completely could not grasp. But yeah, but it was good for the Red Raider faithful in Houston. Yes.
All right, a couple more about the call, and we'll move on from it. Kelly asks, "Was the flagrant two on top and the worst call you've ever seen since you've been doing radio?"
Well, I mean, I probably can't remember every call that I would have disagreed with. I think at the time of it and the ramifications of it, yeah, I mean, it's probably at or near the top. Yeah.
Has to be right
Uh,
because of what
he
happened
he
out of
he
it.
was he was genuinely shocked.
Oh yeah,
He had no idea.
no, he's coming
He's
back on the
sitting
court.
he's sitting down, going over the next deal, and it's like he's like he couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting there going, and I'm listening to him kind of being told, and they're saying it over the crowd, and I'm like, and then Grant immediately goes to the iPad, like, okay, what did I not see?
sure.
And that's the thing is like that's also what added to this. Think about that. Like 2 years ago,
Yeah,
there is no ability to
yeah.
look it up right there, but they have the technology. Everybody does to like look at it immediately, and he
He
lost
loses
it,
it.
and rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think and that's what I turned and said. I'm like, when they come onto the mic and say flagrant two, number 15's been ejected, I turned and said he must have done something really bad. I'm like he must before they show the replay. I'm like what did Toppin do? He must have done something terrible. And then I see it, and I'm just as in shock and awe as anybody else.
Yeah.
Uh, Jacob asks, "What did the coach say when he came back to the huddle on the way to the shower?" So McCasland.
Like he was walking off and he sprinted back to the huddle.
Yeah, he sprinted back to the huddle, and then
Yeah.
he had a last words for each of
Yeah,
the
he
officials
told
too.
me after the game. He told me after the game that he told them, or he reminded them, we have the team to win here. And nothing has changed, and I think it was just a few final and the weird thing is I was talking about it on the broadcast is like it's probably a real galvanizing bonding type moment for Grant and JT to be back there together, basically watching a full game on a monitor.
Yeah,
And he got to obviously Grant got to spend halftime with the team. It's just a weird set of dynamics,
sure,
man. Just
sure.
unbelievably bizarre set of circumstances. And I just to overcome all of that is just wild. I feel like we haven't talked about Christian Anderson or Kerwin
No,
Walton or Emily Yalaho or Darion Williams goes 1 of 5 from three, but the one that he
but the
made,
one, yeah,
oh, I mean,
ice. Yeah,
yes, it Chance McMillan. he is going to go down as one of the most underrated or underappreciated players on your team. He's got some Keenan Evans vibes going with me right now. I'm not saying he's like Big 12 Player of the Year
Hmm.
candidate, but to do what he did
Yeah.
yesterday, and like you're talking about the best defense in the country, and he
Yep.
just decides I'm getting to the rim, and or I'm going to be resourceful and crafty enough to like I'll get a shot up. It may be a scoop, and I may have to pivot, and or I'm just going to drive with my left hand, and I'm getting to the cup.
Yeah.
I mean, in overtime. But that's the thing. It's like he's doing it when there's no plan B, and people are fouled out. It's like, dude, I'm the last one left, and
Yep.
he just got you just enough points.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
And you can't.
sports.
And like you mentioned, Christian Anderson, Emily Elaho, coaches highlighted that they're the two that are on the final play defensively to get the stop for you. Those are the main two where Anderson's guarding Cryer and Elaho's the one that kind of pulls the chair under from uh big guy.
Yeah, Juwan Roberts.
Roberts. Yes,
Yes,
sorry.
number
Thank you.
13, and they kept going.
But
They
pulled the
kept
chair
going to the
on.
same play on that elbow, and he's a lefty. They just want to get him to his left hand, so they get the ball, and they ran it over and over and over and over again. And you were running out of people to attempt to stop it. You knew what was
Absolutely.
coming and what to do, but the kid is good. So yeah.
Level, this one, kind of a funny one from David. Did Level walk home as he promised? I
No,
think that was our last episode, right?
I know.
A
Yeah,
little walk home.
thankfully no. Yeah, I should. Yeah,
Hey,
I should go on a long walk today to make up for it. But
well, I think
yeah,
that still like your exaggeration or your joke with that last week was to express how hard it was going to be to win this game.
and it
And that was
was.
before you knew that you were not going to be without, or you're going to be without JT Toppin and Kevin Overton and lose all these guys to foul trouble. But yeah, I think that's what's still
Well,
so
because
amazing.
what's crazy is I was checking to see what Vegas thought about this game. So I first see it on
Sure.
Friday late afternoon, early
Hmm.
evening, and it's like 9.5, and I'm like, okay. I thought maybe 7 or 8. Okay,
Yeah.
and again, it's an unbiased. It's their odds, and they said
Right.
it. And I'm watching it kind of fluctuate because I have this app that'll tell me if it moves or whatever because I'm just
Right.
curious. I think it's a good tell on kind of
I agree.
what
Yeah.
and it got up to 12 and a half.
Yep.
Like it had, and then I think at tip off, I want to say it was like back down to like 9 or 9.5.
It was 9.5 when I looked at it tip off. Yeah.
Yes, and which is wild to me to see it like I mean that much movement,
I
and I'm
wonder if that
thinking
had to do with Darion Williams and them learning he was
maybe
going to
or
play.
Emmanuel Sharp who was
Or that.
questionable
Yeah.
for Houston, but then what would because my thought it led me to this, what would the odds have been if you say no Kevin Overton, no JT Toppin, no Grant
Right.
McCasland. What do the odds look like there?
17, 18.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
probably
and
blowout.
to that point, kudos to Jeff Linder.
He deserves tons of credit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because after the game he was like, "Dude, I mean, I've won some games before. Don't act like I'm." He was kind of like, but
Yeah.
I just said, "Hey, man, to you just handled everything with calm and just didn't miss a beat." And he was like, "Man, it took me about." Because I interviewed Grant, and then Coach Linder was said, "Man, I should be talking to you too." And he goes, "Man, it took me about 7 or 8 minutes to kind of get my bearings and kind of because I mean, all
Oh,
this
sure.
just happens, and
Yeah.
you're like,
You're not
oh,
expecting it.
here we, right." And he goes, "But then I got I was back in the whatever, and I'm like, it didn't look like it took you." Because he was just calling good stuff, and they just had a good
Yeah.
feel. But credit to AC and Breyer and Barnwell and Linder, and I mean Grant's put together a really really good coaching staff.
Yeah, you understand him getting his bearings or taking time to get his bearings because
Hmm.
most of the time when an ejection happens, it's in the second half when your team's already out of the game. Most ejections go that way for a head coach because you kind of are tossing in the towel. Not always, but it's not usually, hey, 3 minutes into the game,
You didn't even get the
here's the
towel out of the
keys.
dryer
No.
before you were. I mean, at this point, I'm like,
Yeah.
God dang! I was like, we just sat down.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, oh Gosh.
There is a question from Jackson about Coach Linder. It says, did Coach Linder just make himself a one and done? Did he just earn himself another head coaching job elsewhere with his performance?
I don't know. I mean, you go on to have a season like this, and sometimes it may take another one or whatever. But that's people want to be a part of that success. But I just think look, he had a head job,
Yeah,
and he didn't want anymore because he wanted to do this and be side by side with one of his closest friends at a place with a lot of resources, so you could do what you're doing
yeah,
theoretically. And maybe it's worked out better than anybody would have thought, 21 games in or whatever, but I don't know if I would look for that. Because see, unlike Dave Smart, who was kind of on the way up and trying to crack through, I mean, Linder's been there
yeah.
and was like, you know what? I mean, so unless a Power Four school comes
Right.
calling, I just don't see him. I mean, I'd kind of like to keep this thing together for a bit, and see kind of where you can take it because
That'd be nice.
it is it's because man, I looked at Haxton at one point on the deal and I said, look like there was a out of bounds set and it was a four low set, four across the baseline, somebody's throwing it underneath. I was like, look at this. You were smaller at all five
Oh yeah,
positions. All five. And to see like this is like wrecking my brain for those of us that it's supposed to look a certain way. It's supposed to the team's supposed to, because I just remember the Sweet 16 team a few years ago in Mark's first year, and you looked physically as imposing and as good and as impressive as any team in the country, and you overwhelmed people with length and depth and your defense. And this team is not that. You look at them and go, this is not supposed to be happening. Like what I'm seeing doesn't compute, and yet they continue to do it over and over and over again. And there's just it's not the little engine that could. Don't I don't want to say
sure.
that at all, but it's just funny when you've got a bunch of like-minded character working together that's very determined and well coached. And god dang, man, I mean, don't tell them that they're not supposed to do. They hung on the glass with University of Houston at
Yeah.
their place.
Yep.
That's as impressive as the final score to
Without your
me.
best rebounder. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. One more on this. Well, actually, a couple more. Kelly asks, does EY get some minutes moving forward? More minutes moving forward?
I mean, maybe. I think he earned he and just you in general. I think this edition of your team earned a ton of respect. But I know Emily are see like this is the kind of game that because he had it, like I would even have said to you before this game, you kind of wonder what it looks like for him here. Are you going to keep him? You going to grow old with him, like, or is this? I mean, is he ever? But this is the kind of game to where you go, okay,
Yeah.
and again he's getting thrown in to the deep end in this one, and he hadn't played. The last major minutes he had played was December the 21st versus Lamar. He went for 13 and 5, 6 weeks ago
Yeah.
against Lamar on the getaway game when everybody was
Yep.
playing the game and going away for Christmas. And he played like 1 or 2 minutes versus Arizona and Utah. And you put him in against the University of Houston in a contested game against those dudes. But he it took him a bit, but he responded. And my favorite is elite level point guard play when Elijah Hawkins on a break is looking at Kerwin Walton on the opposite wing and the defender kind of bites on it and then
Mhm.
Elijah kind of semi no looks at bounce passes in traffic and
Yeah.
Eli dunked it.
Great
I
pass.
was
Yeah.
like, put it in the Louvre, man. Just like I mean, hang it for all to see. It was glorious.
Okay. I got another basketball question here, but we're kind of running out of time, and we do need to talk briefly about Coach Blanchard because there is that. So what happened earlier this week, um, and you can speak to whether it's ever become official or not, but rumors or reports come out where Coach Blanchard is the favorite to take the GM job. This is on the football side, obviously, to take the GM job, same job he's got at Texas Tech, at Notre Dame. Is that going to happen? Has it happened? And what effect does that have on Texas Tech moving forward?
Yeah, depending on we'll see. Depending on when people are watching this, if there's been
Sure.
yeah
But as we record,
an end to this, or
yeah.
not. But Blanche loves it here. I think he loves working with Joey. I think he's really good at what he does. However, if Notre Dame offers him some of the money, that I think Texas Tech will say, hey man, good luck, because I think they've already identified 3 to 4 candidates that they would be more, and some of which people would know or know their link or whatever. And I think you will salute and move on. And it's really just going to come down to what James wants to do or Blanche wants to do with his family, where he wants to live, what challenges does he want.
Yeah.
Texas Tech will be just fine. And when you first hear this, you're like, "Oh no!" But it wasn't just Blanche that put this portal class together. I mean, there's folks that donated to this cause that had a heavy hand in it, and we'll just kind of see how it plays out. But I think that Texas Tech already doubled his salary last offseason, and I think you're only going to go to the well there so many times before you just say, "Hey, man, good luck to you." This is kind of what the job pays. But if it comes down to money, and that's what Texas Tech wants to do, they can match it. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I just don't know if they want to at a certain level because of what else they may be able to put together here and other people that could come in and do that job as well. So we'll see. It's been dragging on for a bit, but I think everybody's in a good place, and we'll just kind of see what because again, that Notre Dame thing, it's a bit of a different deal. I mean, they just played the national championship. You're recruiting a different athlete. It's a different place to live. I mean, it's just a different deal. So it'd be a tricky, and there would be a lot more pressure on James Blanchard up there than there is here. But that's, again, everybody's got to do what's best for them and their family.
And you are more limited on what athletes you can recruit because of grade regulations
to a certain extent.
too. So,
yeah. But it's just more of a Midwestern style of ball too. You know?
It's different. It is absolutely different. So, yeah. So I mean, I've seen some people blow that up big, but you feel like Tech's in a good spot.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And at
regardless
first,
of what happens.
At first, upon hearing this, I was like, oh. But as you dig in a little bit, I mean, I think you'll be just fine. You'll be just fine, and you will get some money in here that and pay them well and the whole deal. So this is it's got kind of up to what Blanche wants to do ultimately.
Well, Level, I know you had quite the crazy Saturday. Hopefully, you're able to keep the blood pressure down a little bit. Do some meditation, get your prayers in, do whatever you need before another wild week in the Big 12. We didn't even talk about the games up this week, but Baylor, Arizona, we'll talk about them on the other side next week. Appreciate the time as usual, man.
Enjoyed it. Sports are so much fun sometimes, but boy, they can make you run all through the emotions, most of which I felt on Saturday evening in downtown Houston. But yeah, man, guns up and proud to wear that double T often. And kudos to Grant and his kids and everybody for persevering, even though when I maybe thought you were cooked, you weren't. You weren't. So. Good for them, man. But let's do it again next week. How about we go 2-0 this week?
Let's go. He's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.